Hi everyone, Mr. Barden here. Let's get right into it. So in the last video, I talked about how to build a synthesizer just on a real basic level. What goes into it, the different kind of oscillators, and how you can trigger specific sounds. However, this is still a little limited to how you might want to use an oscillator. I mean, it's great and all if you can trigger a sound, or you can be like, here's a random sound, but what if you wanted to have a whole melody of these sounds? Well, that's what we're going to do today. So what we can do with this is utilize the tone.transport. All right, this is just a part of Tone that is able to keep track of time and schedule events to occur whenever we want them to. Again, this is just going to be kind of a basic overview. There's a lot of stuff we can do with scheduling and setting up events. I'm just going to, in this video, briefly go over setting up a melody of notes. That's going to be our main goal. So I'm going to go through all that real briefly, talk about all that, and then I'm going to take the synthesizer from last time and change it from, instead of picking a random note here, we're going to just have a melody that's going to play every time. I'm just going to get this out of the way because that's going to bother me later. All right, let's do that. All right, so tone.transport. What this does is, again, it sets up events to happen in time. It's an internal clock that's ticking, and we can tell it to perform events. Again, we can say, what order we want them to happen, how fast we want this to occur. We could say, start here, end there, do a loop, things like that. It's all done with a clock. So some of the important parameters and things and methods to look at are starting and stopping the transport. We can toggle between all that. Do you want to look at current time in in seconds, or bars and beats and things like that, and how fast do you want it to go? So we've got a few things here. We can basically set this all up in setup, and it'll go right there. It's important, though, and I'm highlighting this right here, is that you need to utilize the tone.transport.start. You have to start the clock, otherwise it's impossible to keep track of all the time. Nothing will work without this line. So I've got some steps through here. It can get a little confusing, but let's just look at the reference material for transport. So you can set up tempo curves, time changes, all this kind of stuff. We're not going to get super in-depth into all of that, but you can do some really advanced things with the transport features. All right. So once everything loads up, it makes a transport automatically, and you got to start it up here. All of that tone.transport, and this one's scheduling some some repeats and things, and we have to start it before it does anything. By default, you just make the transport, and you can pull up various transport options right here. But I think the biggest, kind of most important one to know here is the BPM. That's what we're going to focus on today. Because, again, you can have all this stuff happen, but you want to determine how fast it happens, how, if you want it to be a real slow, fast, whatever, you want it to, dial that in. That's going to be probably the most, the most one that you're going to set up. The most useful, I should say. So let's get into all of that. So, again, once you make the transport, I'll come back over here. We can then just say boop boop boop, new transport. Yeah, just transport dot start. It pretty much already exists. So boop 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 doo. I'll just say right here. So now when we run the code, the transport is going to go. Again, you can define some stuff by storing this all within a variable. There's plenty of ways to do that, but if we look at the BPM right here, the beats per minute of the transport, we can just say tone.transport.bpm.value and set it to how many beats per minute you want to have happen. Again, this is a signal rate. You can adjust this as a signal parameter, so that's why you need that dot value. So if I were to go in here and just say bpm dot value equals 60. It'll be 1 beat per second. We set all that up, then we start the transport. You don't have to, but it makes a little more sense to do this before you start the transport. You know, set all the parameters, start the clock. That's how I like to do it, at least. We go from right there. So we've set up the BPM. We'll come back to transport in a little bit, but let's step away and let's make the melody that's going to happen. Because now we've essentially we've told the clock how fast to go, and we've started the clock. That's the core element there. Let's make a sequence. So sequence is what I'm going to call it. And you can do this in setup or preload. I'll do it in preload just because that's where I built the other thing. Just keeping it all in the same spot, but sequence is going to be a new tone.sequence. So there's some things that we need to look at when we get into here. There's a few things that happen. We're actually going to be making a function inside of the object. And that's something we've done really before in this course. But basically, what this is going to say is one of the arguments is going to be an entire function. It's going to be a very simple function, but that's what's going to be going on. In fact, if you wanted to just copy this, you could, and that would help save you some time. But basically, it's going to be a function, and we're going to go over the time and the note. That's what we're going to be looking at. I'm going to copy this just to make my life a little easy. All right. And that's going to be the first thing right there. Time, note. The next few things, we need to tell it where to get the notes from. That's going to be our melody, and how to break up that melody. I think it's quarter note. How did that go? Four in. There we go. So again, we've made a new sequence, and we're pulling up. Again, we're gonna. It's not gonna be simple synth. It's just synth. Synth dot trigger attack release, and again we're gonna feed in the notes, and each one's gonna be a half second long. We're gonna get those notes from the melody and all that. We'll look at that in just a second. Let's move on to the next step. All right, so again, this third one here, you can change the interpretation of the melody by changing this third argument right here. It's a quarter note, so that's, you know, kind of one note per beat. You can go faster or slower if you want, and that's all. Those beats are relative to the BPM parameter. So we have, you know, 60 BPM. Each note in our melody is going to be one quarter note, so 1 beat per second. If we set it to be eighth notes, it would play 2 notes every beat, so 2 notes a second. Okay, the final bit here is to determine what we want our notes to be. There's multiple ways we can do this, but the easiest way, I think, is to just write out all the notes you want in an array. And that's what I'm going to do right here. So I'm going to say melody. That's going to be an array. What we're going to put here can be whatever we want. Each element in the array is a note, a beat, in this case, quarter note in our time. So I'm just going to pick some random stuff. So as a string, we can be like G2. And then the next beat, E2. And then the next one is a string F sharp 2. And then G2. That'll be the first part. If you want to subdivide, you can do this fun little technique. So again, each index in the array is a beat. If you put multiple things inside of each in each index here, you're gonna do things. So if we said this outside, we put another array inside of here. So I'll say D2 A2 string string. So now we'll be like da 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 da, and then so on and so forth. So I'll do one more. And this time I'll have three things. A2. I'm just gonna copy some stuff for the sake of time, and then we'll add. I forgot to. Yeah, we'll add one more. F sharp 2. Picking some kind of low notes right here, and then last but not least, it'll be G2. All right. So again, if it's da 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 da, that was how it would read. So again, each index here is a beat. When we divide it with a sub array, each element is a division of that beat. So you can divide it in half, you can divide it in 3, you can divide it in however many you need. You just set it up this way. So that's where we pull that from. Again, I've got some right here. So this one would be like, I can actually sing this one because I've heard it enough times to be like da 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 da, and so on and so forth. So again, here we have 4 divisions of the beat, so it's 4 times as fast as the other notes. All right, so we've got pretty much all this set up here. I mentioned the envelope stuff. That's another I'm actually going to copy this, actually. That's another property we can set up here. So we've got our oscillator type of triangle. So we could just make sure I don't miss a comma. Yeah. Type comma, paste that, tidy it up. And again, you can set up the envelope of your thing as well if you want to. Okay. So now I've got just about all of that up and going. I keep clicking into that tab. I'm going to move it over there. So we got that. So now we can go in and set up all of this stuff. Let's see. We've done all of that. We've set the BPM value. We've started it. So now we just need to trigger the thing. I'm going to do it in mouse pressed again. So if we go here inside of mouse pressed, I'm going to comment this out. And we're just going to pull up the just sequence.start. And it's going to feed our sequence into everything here. So if I just said, instead of pulling our random note, just sequence.start, we should hear our notes. We're going to find out. It by default will loop the sequence. That's why I added this here. So now if I click and hold the mouse, it will do all that. So I'll say hold the mouse to play a sequence, to play a melody. All right, again, our very boring melody, but here we go. So if I click and hold the mouse, it will play our stuff. And I let go and it stopped because I don't want to listen to the whole thing the whole time. But that's basically it, just building a sequence and a melody. So again, the melody is just the notes here. In this case, it's the array right there. I'll play this one here. And we get the idea. It's just the array right there. So you can change what notes get played just by changing what you have in your melody array. You can change how they sound by changing the oscillator type and the envelope parameters. And you can get some really custom voices to set up your various parts of everything happening and get, very unique sounds. Here I have a few more things right here. A few more synthesizers, but you can really play around with all these and explore some great things. Again, we're using musical pitches to determine all of this. So again, A0 through C8, is the octave. So, this is, it plays the note C3 on the piano, then E3, then G3. I'm actually an octave too high, but then G3, and so on, and it plays the notes right here. That's where it's pulling these from. You could specify frequencies as well if you want. In the last video, we had everything generate random frequencies. I think when you're working with melodies, playing note names is a little bit easier, but whatever works for you, really. All right, and that's going to kind of wrap out this particular page. So this section of the textbook right here gets into some more in-depth stuff. I'm not going to go through a lot of it, but just know that you can use the transport to schedule more than just melodic playback. So again, you can set the loop to happen, so we could tell our melody to either loop or not. It's either true or false. You can specify other things. There's some more complex codes you can look at right here to play around with. You can specify parts, which are collections of events to occur, and then setting up more and more stuff to happen as we go. You can also schedule parameters to change and send values over time, which is extremely useful if you want to really customize what it is you're doing. Again, we don't get too much into it in this course, but it's something that you can do, and I wanted to make all this available so you can, set values, at specific times and ramps and change over times, things like that. Talking about, again, that notation and scheduling these things. Play around with these codes. There's a lot going on right here. And then we won't get into it right now, but we can actually add in some specific rhythms to go along with your tunings. So in this particular, we have to have another library, which is why I'm not going to really get into it for the sake of time with this course. But check out this page if you want to know more. But basically, you can specify the durations of notes in one array, and then the pitches in another. And then using this other library, this tone-rhythm, we can combine them. And here's the link to get all of that to play the notes. So I'm not going to play it because copyrights. But if you check out this code, you can be like, oh, hey, look, that's the melody for the theme, Maria from West Side Story. But you can check out all of that. You can have some various scales with fun tunings and stuff like that, and a few other embedded things here to check out. But that's going to kind of wrap it up for really basic examples. Again, just making a melody line. I like using this for having, kind of, I'm not going to say lo-fi, but kind of old school video game-esque sounds playing in the background of my music and my various codes. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comment. Also, drop in some fun melodies you might make and attach to synthesizers. I love seeing what people make. All right, so like I said, that's going to wrap it up, and I will see you all next time that I see you. Bye.